next presenter is John Vaughan, and John is going to take another view of the economic report and pick it apart in a different way, or similar but complementary way. John Vaughan has been, let me introduce you, John, and then we'll go. John Vaughan has been a resident of Nevada County since 1967, and his water is served by a well approximately 100 yards from the southwest edge of the Rise Gold Mineral Rights area. He's served executive roles at various for-profit and nonprofit industries, including at Grass Valley Group, Utah Scientific, Precision Printers, and Pride Industries. He has extensive experience in software development, software selection, business analytics, including profit loss and cost benefit studies, as well as acquisition strategies and logistics. John, thank you so much for joining us this evening, and the floor is yours.
Good evening. We're going to cover three main topics today. Annual output, which is the RDN, which in the RDN Economic Impact Report means revenue or total sales. We're also going to talk about the community impact, which is supposed to mean dollars that are spent in Nevada County. And finally, we're going to review what the report says about the impact on the county general fund. But first, some of the presentation numbers in the spreadsheets are in spreadsheets. Most of the time, I'd prefer to avoid that level of detail, but they're important in this case. I've spent hundreds of hours this year studying economic reports, and I've learned a few things. Next slide. The main thing I've learned is that economic studies often present an incomplete picture. The economic modeling software used in the RISE study, called IM-Plan, and is frequently used by companies that specialize in economic studies who are seeking project approval from decision makers. In fact, the RISE study and the independent study done by RDN used the same software. I'm not suggesting the county did anything wrong in selecting RDN. The modeling software is broadly used in the economic consulting industry, and RDN has an excellent reputation. I am saying it's important to know how the modeling software impacts the economic report. Next slide. A few of the issues that stand out regarding the IM-Plan software. Wait for the next slide here. Various professional and academic reviews of the software state it is designed to make project proposals look good. They also indicate the software has a bias towards applicants, resulting in often inflated benefits and job creation. By design, the outcomes are always positive. There is no attempt to account for unplanned, unforeseen events and associated costs. It is not designed to show economic risk. The software doesn't accurately differentiate dollars that are spent in Nevada County versus dollars that are generated here or that go out of Nevada County. Next slide, please. Virtually all input for revenue and expenses came from Rise Gold. Most of the RDN report calculations start with Rise's production estimate of 104,000 ounces of gold per year. Based on models from the 1940s and 50s, it is not based on any current exploration or any current gold core sample. Expenses, the cost to extract and produce the gold, are low compared to industry averages, which makes the net profit higher. Higher net profit makes the economics look good for the county. Next slide. The IM-Plan output, or annual output, is the sum of all goods and services sold. In this case, it's the revenue generated in Nevada County. It does not mean spent in Nevada County. And apologies in advance, as the next couple of slides get a bit complicated. Next slide, please. This is directly from the RDN report, the annual output. We're going to talk about the numbers in the year 4 column, which represent the first year of full production. The direct item of 179.8 million is total revenue generated from 108,400 ounces of gold a year at $1,659 an ounce. The IAM plan software uses a multiplier of 1.13 to estimate that there will be an additional $23 million in local spending or community impact generated from RISE's total revenue. What the 1.13 multiplier means is that for every dollar of revenue generated, there will be 13 cents spent in Nevada County. Next slide, please. 1 second. Annual output. This is the same annual output chart with 2 modifications. We're only looking at year 4, which is the proposed first year of full production, and the estimated community impact of 61.1 million is comprised of the multiplier effect plus the RISE total payroll of 38.1 million, which was not shown in the standard chart. Next slide, please. We're going to take a different look at the RISE data so we can understand what I call the real community impact. There are 2 scenarios to consider. First is that RISE identifies they expect to make $111,500,000 a year in profit after expenses. Virtually none of the profit stays in Nevada County. It goes to shareholders, the board of directors, and others. RISE has also identified $25.5 million in supplier expenses that are spent outside of Nevada County. To see what's actually spent in Nevada County, you need to remove both the profit and the supplier expenditures. When you deduct that, the number that should be, that's the number that should be applied to the multiplier effect, which results in 5.5 million of indirect and induced local spending, not 23 million. Then RISE claims total payroll of 38.1 million, but that includes employer taxes, benefits, employee taxes, virtually none of which are spent in Nevada County. The employee disposable income is closer to $20 million. So 5.5 million from the multiplier effect plus 20 million makes the real community impact about 25.5 million. Not 61.1. Next slide, please. The second scenario to consider is that the RISE Gold claim of 68.3 million in annual expenses, which is how they arrived at the $111.5 million profit that we talked about on the previous slide. The expenses work out to about $630 an ounce to produce the gold. In fact, the industry average is closer to $1,200 an ounce. We'll talk more about those 2 items in a minute. Using $1,200 an ounce, annual expenses are almost double what RISE claims, and profits are cut in half. Smaller profits plus the out-of-county supplier expenditures changes the multiplier effect to $13.4 million. Employee disposable income stays the same, leaving a real community impact of about 33 million in this scenario. The bottom line is the real community impact is half what the RDN report claims as a direct result of input from RISE Gold. Don't worry, we're close to done, only a few more numbers. Now we're going to take a quick look at the claimed impact on the county general fund, or what RDN calls the high-end scenario. The general fund calculations are based on what is called mineral property or mineral reserves. In this chart, RISE Gold shows annual expenses of 68.3 million, which is how they arrived at the 111.5 million we talked about earlier. The present value of mineral reserves were then calculated based on net profit for a total of 536.7 million. But of course, there's more to the story. Next slide, please. The RDN report references the California Assessor's Handbook, section 510, in the part of the report where they talk about valuing mineral reserves. The handbook specifically states expenses for depreciation on things like buildings and equipment should be included when valuing mineral reserves. It appears there are no mitigation expenses, no expenses for depreciation of buildings and equipment. None of the components of the expenses section of an income statement seem to be included. 68.3 million in expenses only includes payroll and supplier costs. The industry average to produce an ounce of gold is approximately $1,200, likely because they've included all the costs. Using the industry average of $1,200 an ounce to compute annual expenses reduces net income, which in turn reduces county property tax benefits by almost 45%. The county general fund impact is then about half of what is shown in the report. Next slide, please. For me, the thing that stands out the most in these economic studies is they do not look at the cost of risk. Whatever economic benefit RISE claims or the RDN study predicts, both are estimates and both pale in comparison to the economic and environmental risks. The software is designed to show benefits and is not designed to show risks and real costs. This is the only project that could create an overnight catastrophe with a multi-million-dollar impact on the economy and the environment. For a county that justifiably prides itself on managing their budget well, this is a very high-risk venture. The data provided by RISE is designed to sell their story. It is not designed to show the facts. The bottom line is, don't be fooled by wild claims of economic benefit. Thank you, and that's it for me.